Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of Morning Matcha. This is our last episode of season 1. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here today with Carolyn Whitty and Felicity Yost, co-founders of TIA, which is a next-gen women's healthcare company made for millennials by millennials. Hi, ladies.
Hey.
Well, thanks for joining us today and coming all the way to Laguna to do this. I'm so excited. I haven't seen Carolyn since middle school. I mean, I don't even think I saw you since you went to Sage for high school. I don't even know. So this is just such a big treat. And I'm really excited to learn more about Tia and you guys and what you're up to. And yeah, so tell me a little bit about how you guys met.
Sure. So Felicity and I met. We have sort of I would say a co-founder love story. We met our freshman year at Cornell. So went to Cornell together in upstate New York and met in a very, I would say, nerdy intellectual academic setting and really hit it off around sort of with a shared passion for international affairs and global women's issues, and spent really we had our initial relationship was highly, I would say, academic before the social friendship part took off.
Wow, really?
And so it's funny to reconnect, almost 10 years later, and really sort of pursue our sort of a shared passion around women's issues together. But our friendship really blossomed when we studied abroad together in Paris. We lived together for a few months in Paris and had the time of our lives, I'd like to say.
Just to be clear, Carolyn crashed my study abroad experience.
Pretty much.
She was studying abroad in Egypt, and she was there during the revolution. And ended up having to leave Egypt, and because Cornell had some strange policy around not letting kids come back after they had started at some point in their study abroad experience, she was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, why don't you just come to Paris?
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
She did. And she was going to learn French, and she didn't do that. Instead, we just spent a lot of time eating cheese and drinking wine and going to Versailles.
And living the good life.
So fun.
So that's how I would say our friendship really took it to the next level there.
Yeah.
But what has been cool is, I'd say, our friendship has always had many facets to it. So you've had, a deep shared sort of intellectual connection and a, social party connection in college, and really into yoga and sort of a spiritual connection, and sort of explored wellness and some more spiritual parts of ourselves together. And one of the things that's been both exciting and truthfully at the beginning a little bit terrifying about starting a company with your best friend is most people would tell you not to do that, particularly in Silicon Valley. It breaks the rule book of how to start a company, and that what if it implodes and you get into a fight, and what happens then? You have investors and blah, blah, blah. And I would say, so it sort of was a little intimidating for us, but really exciting to sort of explore a new facet of our relationship. And I would just say it's one of those things that just feels right and just works.
So how did you navigate that in the beginning when you decided to, so you decided to start it together, or was it some idea that one of you had, or how did that?
Well, yeah, I'll tell the story. So I'll tell it from my perspective, actually. So Carolyn had this idea back in April of last year is when she first actually told me about the idea, and she'd been working on it prior. You were taking a course at General Assembly in product design, right? That really kind of got the wheels turning on her idea, and she started creating wireframes around it and kind of bringing it into a fruition state. And then had come out to Carmel in April and started telling me about it and some of our other friends. And immediately I was so inspired and just wow, this is awesome that she's doing this. And this makes so much sense. And I love the idea and I want to help whoever I can. And then a few months went by before she actually moved back to San Francisco. And when she did, we moved in together and we're roommates now. And so throughout this entire time, I was working as a product manager at a different startup called Owler. And so I have a lot of background in product management and kind of how you do a lot of the more formal bringing products to life kind of process. And so I was trying to help her as I could and give her my bits and pieces of advice.
I was in way over my head, doing this solo, quit my job, trying to figure out how to hire and manage engineers and build a product and raise money and do all of these things. So Felicity was very much my emotional lifeline, but also like, hey, like I have literally no idea how I'm doing this. Like, can you teach me the ropes?
Yeah. So I like to talk about how we'd like come home from work and we'd sit at the dining room table together and we'd like map things out or like talk through things. And so it was kind of a process of slowly being, folded in over time. But it was a moment when my sister actually came out to visit us for Thanksgiving. And we had dinner with her, and the entire time we spent talking about Tia. And then the next day, the entire time we spent talking about Tia. And she was like leaving and goes, hey, by the way, I just wanted you to know that I think it's kind of interesting that I haven't heard anything about your real job. You've just talked about this other thing that you're working on, or like helping Carolyn work on, or like Carolyn's job. It's just kind of funny. And I was like, oh, wow, that's like a light bulb that went off when your sister says something back to you like that. It really makes you reflect. And so I spent a lot of time over the next few months kind of reflecting on, maybe this is really like something that I'm super passionate about in my calling, and what I really would love to work on. And it gives me so much energy to work with Carolyn, and it gives me so much energy to work on a problem that I faced, that I know all of my friends have faced, and I think could have a real impact for people. So in a very Californian story, I went to Esalen for Christmas break.
My favorite place ever.
Spent a lot of time meditating and doing a lot of yoga and soaking in those baths under the stars. And
magic,
then
yeah.
Actually, it's kind of funny. I was with a yoga teacher who spends a lot of time talking about how you need to empower the women, and how our society has a lot of issues because women don't have the kind of right over their bodies that they should. And I was just like, holy cow, this is a sign. So I got back to San Francisco, and I'm like, okay, I had to tell her. And I was so nervous. I'd never been that nervous to tell Carolyn anything before.
I had no idea what was going on.
Oh my gosh. So wait, this
like,
was in November. Or this is after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the beginning of January. Yeah. It's January 6th or something.
Oh, this year.
And
yeah.
So I like sit down on our couch. She's like reading the paper or something. I'm like, I have to talk to you about something. And she's like, okay. Like, I'm ready to quit my job. And she's like, huh? And I was like, and I want to come work with you.
Oh my gosh.
And she was speechless.
I was pretty speechless. I'd spent 5 months or so, selling my soul. I feel like trying to convince all these people in all different aspects of Silicon Valley to sort of believe in this crazy idea I had to build a totally new type of women's healthcare company from the ground up. And it's very, I would say, demoralizing at times, and a test of your confidence. Because people more people say no than yes is an understatement of the century. And I would say my confidence had really been depleted. You're really at times making me question, like, have I lost my mind? Is this a crazy idea? Like, no one believes in this. And when Felicity finally, without any sort of, push from me, came to me and said, hey, like, I believe in what you're doing more than you do yourself, so much so that I'm going to quit my job, like take this massive, financial and personal risk and jump out of the airplane with you. It was like the ultimate vote of confidence, I think, that really helped me sort of move forward and find the strength to keep going. So that was a pretty amazing thing. And it is funny because I did spend a lot of time co-founder dating, so to speak, as they would say, and which was a story for another time, but quite like the worst kind of dating there ever is.
Oh my
and it was
gosh,
like
I
had this dream person right under my nose that I never would have thought of. They just it was like, the book says you don't do that. But the book was wrong.
Yeah.
And it really was without a doubt, the best decision I would say we both have ever made. But really, I think for the Tia would not be where it is today without that. So we're really lucky. It's been an amazing journey.
So when did you start pitching investors or just anyone to start on your team?
Yeah. So I really started about last August. So I'd been, as Felicity mentioned, been sort of toying with this idea. It actually started in part as a result of my own personal pain points with the healthcare system, which is a common, I would say, story for healthcare founders. So if you just have to have such a frustrating experience, you have to ask yourself, like, why does it have to be this way? This is so crazy. There has to be a better way. And so my personal pain points had to do with not being able to find the right birth control, which is something like most women experience at some point in their life. But for me, it really escalated to more serious health issues around fertility and infertility. And so I spent, a couple years going to all these different types of women's health experts, from, OBGYNs to fertility specialists, naturopaths, dermatologists, all these different people, each who I felt were treating a part of me or diagnosing a symptom and failing to connect the dots. So, I did my fair share of the pure wellness approach didn't work for me. The pure medical approach didn't work for me. And ultimately, I self-diagnosed myself and was able to figure out I had something called polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is a super common thing actually amongst women and the root of a lot of sort of more serious health issues. And through that process, I sort of realized, why don't I have my own ownership, my own health data? As a very empowered patient, why don't I have access to own information in my body that would help me make better decisions for my health? I'm so frustrated by going to all these different doctors, none of whom talk to each other, none of whom are sharing any information, and feeling like they're trying to treat a symptom versus think about you holistically and saying, hey, maybe all these different things you're experiencing are connected. We should think about them connected. And then the third piece I think is really important and something we both Felicity and I feel really strongly about, is I felt like the emotions behind my healthcare struggles were totally neglected. No one was thinking about the female experience, or that I was 24 and freaking out about infertility when it's totally a weird thing to even be thinking about, because I wasn't actually trying to have kids, but you're this is totally through my mind for a loop. And the emotions behind that were never, I would say, addressed. And so when I set out to decide how can we build a new type of women's healthcare model that puts the female experience front and center and really is about thinking about what she thinks, what she feels, and what she wants, how would we do that and sort of rethink a new model of care from the ground up. So I decided to start with, partly due to my own experience and partly due to more research I did, the birth control guesswork problem, as I call it. I thought it was an interesting sort of linchpin of women's health and the connective tissue to both non-clinical issues, everything from what you do Saturday night to your career decisions to weight or your moods, your cycle, all these sorts of things, to highly clinical things like ovarian cancer, breast cancer, in my case, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it's an interesting sort of wedge into rethinking a healthcare system or a model for healthcare that really sort of connected the dots between what I thought was very fragmented to today. So I started building the first version of TIA, which was a birth control recommendation algorithm, if you will, with the OBGYN at UCLA, who is absolutely amazing and has been an incredible medical partner for me, for us both, bringing in a lot of sort of the latest and greatest research and evidence around birth control, which is something, despite tens of millions of women taking it every day, there's very little knowledge and understanding of. And trying to say, how can we take what we know and build smarter, more data-driven products that help women better match women to the right birth control for their individual needs. So that was the first version of TIA. It was highly, highly narrow in that regard. And what we saw was TIA would give women a birth control recommendation, like the copper IUD or something like that. And women the response really blew my mind. They would say wow, TIA listens to me. TIA asked me questions my doctor never asked me, in those 7 minutes I had at the doctor's office. TIA, she asked me if I care about hormones. I didn't even know there were options without hormones. No one ever told me. And these are the most highly educated women that, have the most access to information, the most access to care. And I thought that was a very interesting thing. And, but the most interesting part of all is not only were they, felt like they would say things like TIA makes me feel heard, and felt like they were really the ownership of the driver of their own healthcare decision around choosing a birth control, but they wanted to ask TIA all sorts of other questions, from, hey, TIA, why do I get yeast infections, to, what types of organic tampons should I buy, to, how will birth control affect my future fertility? How often should I get a pap smear? All these sort of a wide range of questions, ranging the spectrum of non-clinical to clinical. And this to me really reinforced the idea that birth control really was this linchpin issue that I talked about, and a powerful connective sort of tissue to healthcare at large. And there was demand, most importantly, for sort of this private, trustworthy, anonymous, highly personalized assistant that you could communicate with about your health. And could connect the dots between what is currently a super fragmented system. And that's what we've been working on for the past 6 months. Compassion was as, if not more important than the information itself. So oftentimes someone, is asking like the condom broke, what do I do? I'm freaking out. Like the first thing you can't say to someone is like, you might get pregnant, like go run to the pharmacy and get plan B. It'd be like, hold on, like take a deep breath. Like we've got this. Like let's ask you a few questions. We're going to figure this out. And where Tia really shines is I think finding the balance between compassion and emotion and listening. Sometimes we think Tia serves as almost like a diary where sometimes we don't have to say anything at all. We're just there to listen.
Yeah.
And then taking the latest and greatest evidence and research around certain topics, whether it's birth control, sexual health, stress in your cycle, you name it, and sort of spewing that out in language millennial women can really understand, and using that, giving it to them and helping them make a decision for themselves. So to take a complicated, question like, that's lots of women ask, like the condom broke, what I do. It turns out the answer to that is actually not as simple as you'd think. And it depends on a lot of different factors, from like, where in your cycle are you on? When did you have sex? Are you using birth control? Do you take it consistently? All sorts of different factors that it's not just go get plan B, which is what would happen if you like Googled it. And so we think like Tia is really an answer to the one size fits all WebMD answer, that you're like, so is this the thing that applies to all women? What about me? Like, what about my feelings? What about my experience? What about my situation? We're really a mechanism to help provide highly private and personalized answers in a way that empowers women to take more ownership of their health and make a decision that's right for them.
So it's like your best friend meets your doctor or something like that.
We talked about it.
We named her Tia after aunt in Spanish, and we describe her as like, she's like your cool aunt who's smarter than your best friend but not your mom.
Yeah.
And the person you turn to when shit hits the fan. And she's sort of symbolic for important women in your life. And it's sort of this idea of like across cultures, like whether she's actually your blood aunt or just like some, important older woman, like the idea of a Tia is like very universal across cultures. And we think that's the role we want Tia to play, is very much that trusted person that you turn to, will always be there to provide sort of guidance, and always without judgment. And like removing the judgment around that women all too often feel about a basic health question. Like the most basic health questions that they're so embarrassed to ask. Like we want to make people feel heard, remove the sort of fear of judgment around those issues, and make it known that having these questions is okay, and sort of be that trusted resource to provide those answers.
That's so great. I'm curious how the political landscape has come into play with Tia, because it's obviously like during the time you were planning it was, when it started getting so heated.
Totally. So, I made the decision to quit my job and start Tia before the election, and was like, Hillary Clinton is totally going to be elected. Like, this is absolutely what's going to happen. It's going to be an amazing thing for women's health and women's rights. And then the election happened, and it really threw me for a loop. Personally as like, a woman, and then like as the founder of Tia, and saying like, what does this mean for us? I'd say I've really taken all my frustration and anger and like really channeled it into Tia, and saying, I think we both have. And I would say like, you can speak to this more, but that was partly like right at the time when you were trying to make this decision of what you were to do. And I think for a lot of people after the election, like woke up being like, so like I could keep living my life and doing these things and doing my job that I like and challenges me, or I could like do something that I'm obsessed with, or that like solves a problem that I really, really care about.
Yeah. I think it was a wake up call for a lot of people. And I think I could bucket myself into that, which is just like, hey, if you don't take action, then things aren't going to change in the way that you think they should. And this is one of those ones where I don't think we have an option. I think that we really, really have to fight for helping women feel more empowered and more educated around their health. Otherwise, we're at huge risk as a country, as a society around the world.
My first reaction, like the day after the election, I was like, felt like I'd been like was wounded and felt so distraught, as so many people did feel, and felt like how did I totally think one thing was going to happen and this crazy other thing happened? And now what does that mean for me? What does it mean for Tia? What does that mean for women? All the things I believed in, like my whole worldview felt like it was like changed overnight, or was challenged rather. But what we did was actually like started looking into like, okay, am I alone feeling this insecurity, this like, sort of how am I going to navigate this, the complex, it was more of like an unknown. I think that was like the most scary, because like still no one even knows what's going to happen to women's health. But we started looking at Google Trends data and saying like, what are other people like searching for right now? And one of the things that I think was both was exciting for us and said, wow, like Tia really has an opportunity to fill this void, was the day after the election, searches for birth control went up 400%.
Wow.
And to give you like, or especially for the IUD in particular. So people were posting to Twitter and on Google, like, do I need to get my IUD removed early? Like, you know,
why?
Because
like
people
early?
were so scared that birth control and women's health coverage was going to go away in light of like, this is in
and
24
then
hours.
IUD is very expensive to
Very
get
expensive.
inserted and removed.
And, you know, today, 9 out of 10 women, for 9 out of 10 women, the IUD costs $0 thanks to Obamacare. And if the proposed healthcare bill is passed, like birth control coverage would very much go away and be cause sort of a big shift in how women are managing the reproductive health care as a result of sort of since the Affordable Care Act was passed. And so we thought like, wow, we have this big, like people are really confused. And no one knows what's going on. I think it's the uncertainty that's probably the most scary. And we get a lot of questions about these types of things. And like, hey, can we be a platform that not only helps to empower women with information, but help them navigate a sort of a rapidly changing world of healthcare? You know, what will insurance cover and what will it not? You know, what are your rights? Can we help women know, like demand their right to sort of copay free birth control when most women don't know that they actually have the right, like from a federal perspective, like there's a federal mandate that sort of insists that women have access to birth control without a copay today. And so many women still don't even realize that. And can we be this, again, thinking about our values, providing highly trusted information, and being sort of the experts that speak in millennial, you know, female language? Can we help women navigate this changing world of healthcare and really double down on that effort? And sort of has been, I would say, given us more motivation than anything else. That said, something I really think about, and particularly living in San Francisco, is this sort of fighting this like tech utopianism that I think is a common, I would say, both of like can be a wonderful thing about living in San Francisco and in Silicon Valley, but also something I think I'm very cognizant of the limits of, and saying like, you know, Tia, we really believe can be a partial solution to a lot of the problems women are facing today around their healthcare by providing, you know, highly accurate, private, personalized information about their health. You know, helping women choose an IUD or the implant, or figure out when they should get a pap smear, or, you know, understand what's going on in their body. But if we recommend you go get a pap smear, but the clinic closed and there's no healthcare clinics, like we only go so far, like our solution only goes so far. And sort of being cognizant of like, what are the limits of what Tia can do and technology can do? How can we work with providers in the existing healthcare system to sort of provide end-to-end solutions? And what is the role of technology and like a company in helping sort of change the public conversation around these issues and getting people to take action and aware of the issues at stake, understand what their rights are, and sort of advocate for policies that are for what we believe the betterment of women.
Yeah, it really is like going back to the ever-changing climate. It's just constantly, I'm reading things like, oh, birth control. I mean, this was a while ago, but it's like birth control is going to be available over the counter. And then it's not, or like, we're not even going to have, how are people going to access it? And maybe people don't want to take the pill. So what are they going to take? So they're going to go up to, or they can like message Tia and just ask any of these questions right now, or that's like a future thing.
And so any question related to birth control and sexual health, we're fairly confident we can answer. We view sort of one of Tia's, another sort of superpower we say she has, is really being that linkage to care and helping women know when they need to and don't need to go to the doctor. So if you were to ask us a highly clinical question, you would say, you know, we are not medical providers. That sounds really serious. Can we help you find a doctor nearby in network who can help you get you the care you need? But general information around, you know, is this covered by insurance? What are my rights? What's the difference between a Mirena and Skyla IUD? You name it. Like, are there non-hormonal birth control options? Like, we're pros at answering those questions in a highly personalized way.
Wow, that's amazing. And the bot kind of does that, or that's more, it gets deferred to an actual person?
So we talk about 80% of our questions being answered by the bot. So what that means is that we have a whole bunch of content that our app is actually programmed to answer. And a lot of these questions that we know are top questions for women, we've worked on making sure our bot is there and prepared to answer for those. When our bot isn't trained on that, and when we don't have that kind of in our system, it falls over to what we call our wing women, which are our on-staff health educators who are there to answer your questions. And that's if you have a question that we just didn't know was going to be a question. And so it's really exciting for us when that happens, because one, we get to help you get like a very great answer to your question, and we ensure that that happens. And we know that that's a great user experience. So we really value this component of our app right now. But the other really cool thing is that over time, we're going to be able to learn from those other questions that women are asking in our app and then train our bot on those. So as time goes on, the bot's going to be able to learn more and more answers to the questions.
That's incredible. So when someone searches something right now and the bot answers, like, it's not just like throwing a link or an article at someone.
No, think of it as like almost like the whole thing's chat based. So it feels from a design perspective and an interaction model perspective, it feels all like chatting with a friend. It's in an app, but it's all message based. And think of it as almost like a choose your own adventure like decision tree. So if you ask something like, hey T, I missed my birth control pill, what do I do? Super common question. Actually super, super complicated. Again, one of those where you're like, it's not just like take your pill. I was the person that was doing that for like years of my life. Instead of doing it wrong for a very long time. And it's actually really complicated. And so T will be like, hey girl, like, first off, deep breath, we've got this. Can I ask you a few questions and to help you like figure out the right solve here? So we'll ask you, so, Nikki, like how many pills did you miss? Was it one or two or more? Like what week in your pack are you on? Have you had unprotected sex in the past 5 days? And you go sort of this back and forth between sort of through these various questions that we know we need to answer to provide you that highly personalized answer. And we basically take those different sort of answers and use that to spit out a highly personalized answer at the end that says, hey, because you only missed one pill in the first week of your cycle, you're like totally good to go. Take that pill as soon as possible. And then you should be back on track. At another point in your cycle, we might say, you might want to use backup contraception for the next 7 days, and then you should be good to go, or sort of give you sort of proactive guidance in that way.
Yeah.
So why we kind of came to this idea is there are all these kind of nuances around these types of questions that mean that the answer isn't just the one size fits all that you're going to find on WebMD or some other forum. There's specific things about you that shape the result. So we think that the conversational UI is a really, really powerful way of getting to that right personalized answer. And
it also allows us to inject a lot of personality. Yeah. So I love, you talked a little bit about, Tia being the cool aunt, but like we're trying to like move away from the clipboard at the doctor's office feeling where you're like answering a bunch of like annoying health questions that feels super transactional. It's like you're talking about someone's sex life or like their health. Like this is like a super intimate emotional experience for lots of people, particularly around things that pregnancy scares, fertility, like these are highly emotional experiences. And can we like build a more compassionate interaction that makes people feel heard, makes people feel less judged, makes people feel comfortable sharing information. And so often like get them to a relief state of mind, which we think is really important. There's something we talk about, sort of the user journey that we see people turning, we see in our product is oftentimes women are turning to Tia when they're freaked out, when they're scared, embarrassed, confused, and then report immense relief after getting their answer. And that's sort of what we see in the heart emoji or the like, thanks Tia, I'm so grateful, or these like statements of immense gratitude. And that is incredibly fulfilling for us as founders, but also just like really a testament to the value and the differentiated value that Tia provides, the types of answers we give. And we really believe that like the biggest problem facing women's health today across the space is that like all too often women are making decisions about their health from a face of fear, anxiety, shame, regret, confusion, instead of one of confidence, whether it's if only I'd known I should have frozen my eggs. Like, why didn't anybody tell me that? Like, why, like someone just gave me these birth control pills and I'm taking them and I don't know what they're doing to my body, or sort of just this lack of confidence around their healthcare decision. And we fundamentally believe that like no good decision in any of your area of your life is made from a state of fear. And if we can, more again than providing just information, if we can be that compassionate sort of wing woman or guide in your life that helps you get to an emotional state that's a state of confidence that helps you make a decision you feel good about, then we've done our job.
Yeah. It's your body. I mean, it's like, it's my body. Why am I giving this up to my doctor to decide for me? I just want to know the information and then I can decide.
Totally.
But I think, and in general, and I don't know, you just kind of give up that power to someone else. It's just the patriarchy.
We talk a lot about like our core brand ethos is around choice and informed decision making as the outcome. And choice is a very loaded word in this country, but one we use very intentionally and feel very strongly about. And we believe that like we exist, like Tia fundamentally exists to help women exercise choice in their healthcare decisions, big and small. We never ever make decisions for our users. We're never ever like, go get plan B. You really should get the copper IUD. We're like, hey, here are your options. Here's information. I trust that you can make the best decision for yourself and your own body and your own life. And we're just here to like help you understand what choices you have.
Or reinforce that choice is there, which has been, I think, a really powerful learning for us. Again, as people from San Francisco, that a lot of these people that we're talking to, a lot of these women don't even have that like first idea in their head about their healthcare, which is so like just being able to introduce that idea is incredibly powerful.
The first idea about how they
have a choice.
Yeah.
There's a choice for them.
Wow. What about boys or men, or do you have any men that are messaging you asking questions?
Yeah, we have gotten some men. We'd say, you know, first and foremost, I think like Tia is a platform for all people, and it's we're all about inclusivity, and we aim to make our product available to anyone who has questions about their health. We say our expertise really lies in helping you know, people with female anatomy get the information they need to make a decision for their own healthcare today. That said, sometimes we get guys having questions about their partners or things like that. And, you know, we do provide answers to those questions that are like, hey, do you want to, you know, give the phone to your partner, like tell your partner to get to you and ask us, but we don't close our doors to anybody, so to speak, but would say our expertise really lies right now in focusing on the female experience.
Yeah. Because the whole talk on gender and gender neutrality, I think it's really interesting because then you know, people can have questions about hormones and hormone therapy and
it is for sure. It's a complex world that we're navigating, and how do you build a product and a service that meets the needs of everyone? We do go to great lengths to make our product very inclusive, I would say, of all people and experiences. And, you know, Tia asks you what your preferred gendered pronoun is, and we never assume the sex of your partner or anything like that. It's like, we're here to provide information about like biology, you know, your body and like, you know, who you love, how you identify, all those sorts of things. Like, you know, you can share that with us if you feel that helps provide and context us, that can help get you a more personalized answer. But it's, you know, we respect and are open to all people.
Yeah, that's so great. So right now it's in beta, and when does it come out of beta?
That's a good question.
Just explain, like, people that don't know the difference, right? Because right now it's doing so many things.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does beta mean exactly?
Sure. So what beta means is just that we've launched an app. It's not perfect yet. We're still doing a lot of testing around it. So be patient, essentially. When we bring it out of beta isn't specifically defined in our product development roadmap. It's much more kind of when we feel like we can guarantee a certain uptime, a certain responsivity, and just kind of bugginess free experience. So right now, as a kind of scrappy startup with limited resources, we've developed what we call an MVP, a minimum viable product, to get it out there, to get users in the app and testing it. We've gone through actually several iterations of what we have today. We've done a couple of, very scrappy versions of Tia down to a more kind of robust alpha model. And then we launched our beta model. And we'll continue iterating on this, but we do know that we still have some bugs and limitations for the experience, and we're working on solving those. But at the same time, it's really important to us to be able to get to a point where we can say, hey, like, we know this is our core engagement model. We know this is our core acquisition model. So we have to figure out, and this is a constant struggle in developing a software product at a startup, is how do you go off and build those things and get that kind of solidified understanding while also maintaining this other kind of core tech part with the limited resources that you have and this, kind of small and agile team. So that's where we stand.
I would say one of the challenges for like people in healthcare or health tech rather is like technology is like move fast and break things, like launch imperfect products, learn really quickly, iterate really quickly. When you're dealing with someone's health, it's like you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Like you can't be like, sorry, I meant to say like, you're like, you are pregnant and you're not, or like something like that. It's like, this is like really serious. Like you can't get it wrong. There's a little room for error. So
it's not like Postmates where they forget your order or something.
No, totally. We can't like not remind you to take your birth control when we told you we were.
Yeah.
And so we have to like, there's a certain level of confidence in what we've defined and we've gone through great lengths of before we launched our beta and made it available to anyone can download it. There's no, invitation or code that you need to get the app installed on your phone. We're like, we need to have a certain confidence level that we can do sort of the nuts and bolts really well. Like, so today we're very confident that Tia is a pro at recommending the right birth control to you based on your medical history, personal preferences. So, what do you care about? Hormones, no hormones, skipping your period, having a regular monthly period, et cetera, and birth control history. And we're very confident that we can do that extraordinarily well today, and have gotten amazing feedback from doctors, et cetera, on sort of that being a sort of a keystone of our product. Tia can remind you to take your birth control and can set up custom birth control reminders.
Wow.
And you can track your symptom and cycle with Tia, as well as sort of get personalized private answers to those top women's healthcare questions around birth control and sexual health. So that was sort of what we called our MVP, so to speak, and say, hey, we do this really well. We're confident we can go out the gate and do these things and provide a high quality experience while we continue to expand our content and expertise to cover a broader range of women's healthcare topics, from fertility to pregnancy to wellness and stress and all these other areas that we're really interested and continue to learn very, very quickly from our users about what they want.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to get into funding for a little bit, because I think I'm just curious what the experience is like and how it's like to pitch people. Obviously being denied is huge. You were talking about that. It's just really big. I know what it's like, and it's not fun, but it takes a type of person to get back up, and it's nice to have each other for that. But I'm curious what your experience is. What do the boardrooms look like? What is, as two women going out and doing this, or have you explored that yet? Or are you just perfecting your product before going for another round? Have you done just a round at all, or just a first round?
So we have raised some capital that's funded us to date. So from a handful of angel investors and family and friends who really believe in what we're doing and supporting us. And it's been really lucky to get our first product out the door. And we're starting to go raise what they would call a sort of venture capital seed round by the end of the summer. So I think from, the investment strategy and environment has been a massive learning experience for me. And I would say here's like a couple of things I've learned along the way. One, it's all about confidence and projecting a huge amount of confidence. And that, there's no certainty in this world, but it's all about the next best thing is confidence, and people like investing in people that believe, enormously about their own vision. And when you can project that confidence, have enough conviction in what you believe in, what you're doing, so that other people see that are like, she knows what's up.
Yeah.
Like she believes in this so much that like, I'm going to believe in it too. And unless you can do that, I think you're going to struggle. And truthfully, despite having like a huge amount of confidence and belief in a grander vision of Tia, until a few months ago, I don't think we had a lot of questions in my own mind about what we were doing, or like what exactly was going to work. What was the specific problem we're solving? What is the specific model for that gets people coming back, that really, gets people to send that heart emoji? Like, what is that? And now we feel, we've learned a lot over the past 12 months and feel like we have a huge amount of conviction that have a very differentiated model for women's health. that's rooted in building a trusted relationship with women. And that is incredibly valuable and something to invest in. So that, I think, gives us a lot of confidence to go out and say, hey, we're ready to take some money and help scale what we've built so far and improve TIA so we can make it available to more women. The second piece I would say is like, there's been more money and venture capital money going into women's health in the past 18 months than ever before, which is super exciting. I'd say women's health is hot finally, which is like sort of crazy because it's half the world's population. So it's like why it has like, it's not a niche market.
Yeah.
Like there's been a lot of like people used to challenge me and say like, so how big is this market? Like, is this really a big idea? Like, it feels like really niche. It's like you're literally talking about half of humanity. So I like that I really struggled with. And sometimes you just have to like take a deep breath and you know, either roll your eyes or like say, to really challenge, find the, you know, strength and the confidence internally to challenge that and say, you know, do you have a wife, a sister, a daughter? Do they have questions about their health?
Yeah.
Pretty sure they do. And sort of come back with the conviction that we have and try and convince people to believe that this is really something big. So I would say the third thing, why people suddenly care around women's health is I think there is this wake up call that like, this is half of humanity. Like it's been totally, this sector has been very much underinvested in historically by this community. And it's a really powerful demographic. And we need to build products and services that empower this market to better manage their health. But also from a practical perspective, so one of my favorite statistics, women spend 80% of the healthcare dollars in America. So there is this new sort of attachment to this thesis, like capture the woman, capture the family. Not only like do women deserve better products and services, but women like, you know, build a product, you know, women spend the healthcare dollars that, you know, support one of the biggest industries in the country.
Yeah.
And therefore like, it's really important that we build products that sort of address this demographic. So those are some of the things I've learned along the way. And we're really excited about the excitement we're seeing in TIA and from investors and users and all sorts of different people and saying like now really is the time to rethink women's health and build a product that addresses sort of the female experience.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I'm so happy for you guys. And I guess I want to end with what the future holds. What's TIA's future?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, it's obviously unlimited, right?
Yeah.
There's so much that can happen, but what are some things that you're excited to see in the near future?
So I'd say one of the most exciting and challenging things about starting a company that I'm sure you experience as well is the challenge of how do I think like 10 years out, but then also like 10 months out, 10 days out, like 10 hours out, and like finding the balance between the today and tomorrow vision and saying like, okay, it would be really cool in the future if we can like predict XYZ and like, you know, T is in every single doctor's office in America and blah, blah, blah. But like, okay, so what are we going to do for the next 10 hours so we can get like the little inch forward to get there? So constantly finding the balance between that. But the way that sort of keeps me, I would say, driven towards the same North Star, both of us and our team, is we talk about like, what does success look like from our perspective in 4 years? It's not really a number. Like we have numbers and we have lots of numbers that we're like gunning to hit and all sorts of stuff like that. But it's really about something a little more, I would say, amorphous, where we talk about trust. And when you think of women's health or a trusted women's health brand, we want people to think of TIA and saying like, when I'm freaked out, scared, confused, embarrassed, I go to TIA. Like that's the sort of psychological effect that we're really looking to have on women and hope that we can cultivate that trust amongst lots of women in the US and maybe one day around the world in a way that builds sort of community trust and helps more women make decisions with confidence.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to go and download TIA right now. I actually was trying to do it right before this. So I'm going to just figure out all of my questions that are personal and private and I don't want to share right now.
Awesome.
But thank you for coming today. And it was really fun catching up.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really happy to see how TIA grows and all the people that you're going to help. It's important work. So thank you.
Thank you.